Part 2.3 The higher dimensional other breaks the impasse. China's mind philosophy awakening. Almost contemporaneously, the rise of Wang Yangming's school of mind in China was also a product of taking the native as the foundation and the higher dimensional other as the driving force. Native thoughts of Confucianism and Taoism had long contained the seeds of universality. Lao Tzu's calmest vision that heaven and earth are born together with me, and all things are one with me, in the Tao Te Ching. Zhuangzi's theory of equality, that all things are neither noble nor humble. Mencius's ideal of sagehood, that everyone can become a Yao or Shuan, and Xunzi's belief in moral improvement, that even a common man can become a Yu. All these together constitute the native paradigm of Confucianism, centered on inner reflection and the attainability of sagehood for all. However, these propositions remained largely at the level of ethical advocacy, lacking a practical path directly leading to the inner mind. Buddhist civilization, with its higher dimensional wisdom in the cognition of the mind nature and the system of spiritual practice, precisely and perfect alignment with this native paradigm. Buddhism put forward the idea that all sentient beings possess the Buddha nature, not only grounding the principle of equality of all beings in the reality of the inherent completeness of the original mind, but also constructing a comprehensive practice method of illuminating the mind to perceive nature, breaking the rigid barrier between sages and ordinary people. Part 1.4 The higher dimensional other breaks the impasse. China's mind philosophy awakening. Absorbing the wisdom of Buddhist mind-nature theory, Wang Yangming broke the cognitive shackles of the heavenly principle existing externally, putting forward the core propositions of the mind is principle and extending innate knowledge. As she explicitly stated in Record of Instructions, there is nothing outside the mind, and there is no principle outside the mind. To seek principle externally is like fishing for the moon in the water. This innovation returned the power to become a sage to the individual, awakening the enduring native genes of Confucianism. Peasants, artisans, merchants, and scholars alike could achieve moral perfection through inner self-reflection, naturally nurturing weak exclusivity. Unlike Protestantism, the school of mind completely bridged the gap between the individual and the heavenly principle, and its cognition of the unity of heaven and humanity endowed its weak exclusivity with a more solid foundation. Part 3.1 Divergence and Convergence. Toynbee's Challenge and Response Theory. Arnold. Toynbee, through his comparative study of the rise and fall of more than 20 civilizations in a study of history, distilled the core theory of challenge and response. The upgrading and transformation of a civilization is essentially a successful response to external higher dimensional challenges, and the strength of the response capability directly depends on the resilience and inclusiveness of the locality. Both revolutions achieved a shift from authority to the individual, yet left a fundamental divergence in their understanding of the relationship between the individual and ultimate truth. And the bridging of this divergence serves as a profound interpretation of the challenge and response theory. Part 3.2 Divergence and Convergence. Core divergence between two revolutions. The school of mind integrated the individual with the heavenly principle, advocating that everyone can become a sage, with its core being that original mind is truth, and no intermediary is needed. Protestantism, on the other hand, maintained an absolute distance between the individual and God, only endowing the individual with the autonomy of faith, with its core being that faith is salvation and still requiring the Bible as an intermediary. This divergence was bridged in spiritual philosophy, transcending civilizational boundaries, fundamentally. It was a reawakening of the native egalitarian genes of human civilization by higher dimensional wisdom. Among these, the Seth material stands as a cornerstone text of the New Age spiritual movement, alongside Edgar Cayce's readings and the Course in Miracles. Dictated by Jane Roberts between 1963 and 1984, and transcribed by her husband, it is categorized academically as a channeled spiritual philosophy rather than a religious doctrine. So it is colloquially referred to as the modern Buddhist scripture in Chinese-speaking circles, particularly in Taiwan, due to its parallels with Buddhist tenets such as the mind is Buddha and all beings possess Buddha nature. It is not a branch of Buddhism. Unlike Navayana Buddhism, a socially reform-oriented Buddhist school founded by B.R.M. Bebkar, this material emphasizes a religion transcending science of consciousness, asserting that individuals can connect directly with inner truths without intermediary. Part 3.3 Divergence and Convergence. The leap of New Age spirituality. From Edgar Cayce's life readings emphasizing that everyone contains a spark of divinity, to the Seth material proposing that you create your own reality, and to conversations with God directly declaring that you are God, complete and sufficient in yourself. These spiritual trends completely broke through the limitations of Protestantism, completing the leap from individual freedom of faith to the inherent divinity of the individual. The classification of common civilization levels in the Thealwuba prophecy and the assertion that love is the origin of the universe in Anu, the child of the stars, transcended the dualistic opposition within Earth's civilizations, conveying underlying laws applicable to all life, and resonated profoundly with the native ideals of Confucianism, bringing underlying laws applicable to foundings inherent profoundly, completing the leap from underlies beings, prefasication, or proverb, the libation of Confucianism, that everyone can become a Yao or Shun, and tiles that all things are of the same origin, I stated in Conversations with God. There is no separation between you and God. You are an extension of God. His cognition formed a cross-temporal echo, with one means Tism had now completed to its culmination, then Protestantism had now completed to its culmination, and elevating weak exclusivity to a new height of universality. Looking back on these two civilizational revolutions and the subsequent extension of ideas, a common truth becomes increasingly clear. Without the soil of native genes, even the most advanced external wisdom cannot take root. Without the challenges posed by higher dimensional others, native genes can only lie dormant under the shackles of authority. The rational light of Arab civilization and the spiritual enlightenment of Buddhism were both key challenges that broke the monotony. The progression from Protestantism to spiritual philosophies demonstrated a continuous evolution of civilization's response. When individuals no longer need any intermediary to connect with truth, and when everyone can find ultimate value within themselves, civilization truly breaks free from the shackles of exclusivity and moves toward a broad world of inclusive symbiosis. Part 4.1 The Core of Universal Values, a global pattern of civilizational evolution. The advancement from weak exclusivity to universal values is by no means a simple expansion of the scope of inclusiveness, but a deep recognition of common human values by civilization, with its foundation lying precisely in the shared native egalitarian genes of different civilizations. This pattern is not limited to the three regions of China, India, and Europe. It is a universal law governing civilizational evolution across the globe. Part 4.2 The Core of Universal Values. Case Studies of Global Civilizations. In India, the native Upanishadic tenet of Brahman Atman unity, The idea that the ultimate cosmic reality is identical to the individual soul planted the seed of universality long ago. In the medieval period, Adi Shankara reconstructed Hinduism through the lens of Advaita Vedanta, breaking down the caste barriers of Brahmanism and asserting that anyone, regardless of social status, can realize Brahman-Atman unity through meditation. This resonated strongly with Mahayana Buddhism's ideal of enlightening all beings, activating India's neighbor gene of all things sharing the same origin. In modern times, thinkers like Sri Aurobindo and Jiddu Krishnamurti further integrated this tenet with Western rationality, proposing the idea of collective human evolution and enabling Hinduism to transcend narrow sectarian conflicts and embrace universal inclusiveness. Within Islamic civilization, the native Bedouin tradition of tribal symbiosis and the Quranic verse, O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another, laid the groundwork for universal equality. Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, embraced the core of love and unity, exploiting the formal constraints of Islamic law. It proposed that all things are manifestations of Allah, expectating union with the divine through inner spiritual practice rather than external sectarian rituals, absorbing the Neoplatonic doctrine of emanation. Sufism awakened the native egalitarian gene of Islamic civilization, becoming a spiritual bond that transcended ethnic and sectarian boundaries. Among the indigenous peoples of the Americas, the native belief in animism, the idea that humans, mountains, plants, and animals are all children of Mother Earth, coexisting as equals, embodied a universal core. In modern times, this native gene was fully activated through its encounter with the New Age spiritual movement. Spiritual teachers like Sobonfu Somé integrated African traditional wisdom with the indigenous American philosophy of symbiosis, advocating that the Earth is a single living community. Vision that echoes the cosmic perspectives of Edgar Cayce and the Seth material. Part 4.3, the core of universal values, the consensus of common human value. Wang Yangming's school of mind's concept of extending innate knowledge, which locates the heavenly principle in the inherent conscience of every person, essentially recognizes the universality of moral qualities, regardless of social status or knowledge. Conscience is humanity's innate common endowment. The Stoic assertion that man is a citizen of the universe embodies the universality of individual dignity. The idea of divinity inherent in humans from cross-civilizational spiritual philosophies breaks faith boundaries, affirming the universality of spiritual pursuit. This universality is repeatedly confirmed in Eastern-Western dialogue. 亲子狗，孔夫学意思 Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself. Christianity is love your neighbor as yourself, different in quality from all sentient beings. This different expression. Identical in Baidu orientation. Wang Yangming's every street is full of sages, and conversations with gods, you are God, share a core insight. Individual awakening is the starting point of civilizational universality. Weak exclusivity is civilization's first step away from authoritative constraints, while universal values are its ultimate symbolic goal, one that honors civilizational differences, yet seeks a shared spiritual foundation. Part 5.1, historical lessons illuminate culture. The indispensable dual elements at a time when the clash of civilizations really persists. The trajectory from exclusivity to universality offers a vital lesson. Native genes are civilization's root. Higher dimensional mutual learning is its wings. Both are indispensable. Meyer's dialectical symbiosis, Pranger's cultural paradigm, Christie inherent concepts converge on one truth. Closure breeds rigidity. Openness fosters vitality. Openness without native roots reduces a civilization to a foreign vector. Modern cross-civilizational resonance between Eastern mind philosophy and transboundary spirituality signals humanity's shift toward deeper integration. When Eastern wisdom that everyone can become a sage meets the idea that divinity is inherent in humans, a bridge across civilizations is built. This is not a simulation, but mutual learning toward universalities. Civilization of the future is not either-or opposition, but harmonious coexistence in difference. Native roots as foundation, higher dimensional others as drive. Light in the path, individual awakening, and civilizational mutual learning.